think it's, oh,
Oh,
there
there
we
we go. Perfect.
It's just being temperamental.
No problem. Thank you. Okay, so on to our next item. We're coming out of camera. So our next item on the agenda is 4 point, oh wait, sorry, we're out of business arising. We're on to 5 subcommittee or task force updates. I don't believe there are any updates forthcoming. Is that correct, Virginia?
Yes, that's correct. We haven't had any meetings for a little bit, so.
As is fine, because folks need a break. Enjoy your summer. Item 6, new business. 6.1 is project updates, overview of the status of public art projects. I'll toss it over to you, Virginia.
Yeah, I just wanted to give a couple updates on the projects that we've been working on. So the traffic wraps, we're just pending the quotations to come back. So the artwork was selected. We selected the locations for the boxes that are getting done. So there'll be 6 of those. And it's taking quite a while to get the quotations back. It seems that everybody's pretty busy these days. So that I'm hoping will be installed sometime in the next few weeks. The Lightbox project is moving forward. We're trying to finalize the install of the locations. There were a couple locations that we were trying to explore using solar powered light to light the boxes, just because of their location and proximity, the preferred location, and then the proximity to being able to access a power source. So the electrician has been looking further into that, and we're working on trying to arrange the install date. So that's underway. Summer Moon Festival went well. Everybody saw the end product of all the murals that were created, and a series of workshops was done. So that was a really busy time frame at the end of June. So there was lots of activity going on. And Andrew, did you want to talk a little bit about the Bunny Man project? I'm gonna put you on the spot.
Sure. Yeah, so Tom O'Flanagan has been teaching a course over the summer for Algoma University, and the students are making a series of bunny men that will be installed throughout a number of areas. I know, Virginia, you were meeting with them last week to select sites. So the bunny men are kind of a iconic work of Tom's that he's done over the years. And as this is his last class, it's a really nice legacy project for him to be able to leave in the community upon retiring. So yeah, really excited to have this happen. And it looks like most of the bunnies are complete. So
yeah, it's been a really fun project. So just so the committee kind of has a bit of visibility, we do try to partner with the university each year on a different project. So working with Andrea, we look at how we can support the university through some of the small pots of money that we have available. Last year we did the Gathering Place, which was a combination of it was Annie, right? Annie did that one, Annie King, and we brought in oh, sorry, I'm blanking out right now.
Michael Bird was assisting with it.
Yeah. So they did sculptures that are located out on the waterfront just outside of City Hall. So that's something that we try to do each spring session. So that was this year's project. So it's a lot of fun, and it's been great working with the students, and hopefully those will be installed once they're just finishing up the details on their bunnies, and then we'll take the installation to the next step. So
great. Thanks,
yeah,
Virginia.
I just want to say thanks too. It's been really wonderful working with the city on these projects for the school.
Well, that's fantastic. Thank you both for the updates. It's a really exciting initiatives. Item 6.2, budget request 2023. So this is discussion regarding the request for additional funds for the Arts and Culture Assistance Program for the next year. I'll hand it over to Virginia in just a second, but it's just to say that last year our approach was to ask for the full amount that is the target from the cultural plan, and the worst that the budget committee can say is no. and or give us a lower amount. And we did get an increase last year. We didn't get the full amount that we requested, but we did get an increase. Is that correct, Virginia?
Well, the increase was from the previous year.
Okay.
So yeah, so we actually saw it in our 2022, like in the budget, but we didn't get an additional increase. So I did prepare the request again, just because we had some internal deadlines. I do have the ability to make adjustments, but I did put it in for the full amount again of the 160,500. So that has been submitted. And then I had just let them know if the committee wanted to go a different direction, then I can make those adjustments based on your feedback.
And the floor is open for discussion. Larry?
I don't know whether Donna can answer this or not or help us, but do we hurt ourselves in getting increases by asking for the whole enchilada?
Donna?
I say no, because there's always, this is a supplementary ask, right, Virginia?
Yeah, so this would be part of our operating request. So it's called a service level increase request.
So it's not in supplementary, or so it's in the main budget?
It would be part of the supplementary items, because you'll see the capital requests, and then you get their operating requests for either staffing or additional funding for initiatives.
So for anything on the supplementary list, Larry and everyone else, to receive support, usually someone has to bring that forward. And, I would like to bring forward for your consideration and your support and whatever. So as we did not last year, but the year before and the year before that, I believe, I brought forward considerations for increases in funding. And while we didn't get support for everything that we wanted, we did get halfway there, and then the other half of the way there the next year. And so I don't think it hurts in any way. It's not going straight into a budget that has to be, it's something that someone has to advocate for, and I will certainly be advocating for that if that's an opportunity that I'm given. But there's many other counselors around the table as well, who very much value growing the money that we have available to support arts, culture, and heritage, and that should be fine. We need those champions around the table for anything that's on the supplementary list to move forward.
Thanks very much, Donna. Any other discussion? Heather?
I say ask for more. And I say that because the programs were oversubscribed. And I'm expecting now that, so many things were postponed because of COVID. People are coming out trying to do more. We're definitely seeing more arts and culture events, festivals, programming in the city. People are just doing more. There's going to be more ask. I think we should ask for more.
Just to clarify, the ask that went in is for more than we've been allotted. It's the target of, what was it, Virginia?
We were trying to
per capita.
Yeah, we were trying to get to $5 per capita.
Right, and we're hovering around somewhere around like 3.5 or something like that now.
Yeah.
So the request is for getting that full 5 per capita so far. Any other comments or contributions? Larry?
In our request, do we make reference to the policy and the $5 per capita just even in brackets somewhere, as the rationale for what we're asking?
Yes, we do. So when I submit the requests, I have an opportunity to write a rationale and provide background information in there. So when I outlined it, I did reference the cultural plan and the goal to get to $5 per capita, as well as some of the history on the increases. In addition, I referenced our strategic plan, One of the key initiatives that was identified as part of 2021, which was before, was the implementation of the cultural plan. And again, that ties it back to reaching the $5 per capita and the increase in cultural funding.
Thanks very much, Virginia. All right, last call for any further discussion. Seeing none, I gather there's a consensus for the submission that you've already made, Virginia, which is for the full amount up to that $5 per capita.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Then we have the amended 6.2, which is a request for funding for additional funds. Sorry, a request for $40,000 in public art funding to support the Indigenous screen for the downtown plaza. Of note here is that currently the public art account has a balance of $56,000. And when is that renewed, Virginia?
So in 2023, we'll have an additional 40,000 allocated. So each year, 40,000 goes in to support public art initiatives at this time.
Okay.
If we do achieve the additional funding at this next round of council, we'd be able to have allocated more funding into public art as well.
Great, thank you. So yeah, so it's January. That's the sort of trigger of. Okay, great, thanks.
As well, so the committee knows, unspent funds do hold into a reserve. So we have, when we created the public art account, that's how we had the additional funds, because 2021 carried over. So we do anything that is unspent sits in a reserve account for us. So that's how we got to the 56,000 remaining for this year.
Thanks very much, Virginia. Did you want to lead us through the presentation of the proposal?
Yeah, so this is the information that I received. So I'll give a bit of a background and I'll try to answer your questions to the best of my ability. We do have a little bit of background on the design team. So the company that is doing the plaza, because this will be located in the plaza, is called Brooks McElroy. And they have a design team, an Indigenous group within their design firm. So they provided some background on the individuals that were in charge of leading the consultation process and coming up with the development of the design as part of that consultation process. So they do have, so Ryan Gorey has been collaborating with Brooks McElroy since 2009. He was retained as a key member of the design team from the award-winning Spirit Garden in Thunder Bay, and formally joined the team in 2016 to lead the Winnipeg office and the Indigenous Design Studio. He's a member of Bing. Oh, Sean, I'll ask for your assistance.
No problem. Bingwin Niasha Nishnabek.
So Sandpoint First Nation of Lake Nipigon, and he strives to ensure the perpetuation of Indigenous culture through creative opportunities ranging from crafting of traditional items for ceremonial use to large-scale landmark architecture. In 2018, Ryan's work was showcased in Unceded, Voices of the Land at the Venice Biennial, along with the work of 17 other Indigenous architects and designers across Turtle Island. His work has been recognized with awards from professional bodies, including the Ontario Association of Architects, Royal Architectural Institute of Canada, and Ontario Woodworks. Oh, sorry, the other individual that was involved with the project was Danny Roy. He's an intern architect and planner at Brooks McElroy and is part of the Indigenous Design Studio as well. He's a member of the English River Dean Nation in Treaty 10 territory of the Cree Métis from northern community of Saskatchewan, Isle à la Crosse, Saskatchewan. He holds a Master of Architecture degree from the University of Calgary and a Bachelor of Arts honors degree from the University of Saskatchewan in Regional and Urban Planning. He was formerly a Senior Regional and Community Planner practicing in Saskatchewan and has had the opportunity to work with numerous municipalities and Indigenous communities to help develop sustainable planning frameworks. This included being co-author and facilitator of the award-winning City of Prince Albert Municipal Cultural Action Plan and a project to lead Black Lake First Nation Community Land Use Plan. So those were two of the key members that were involved with the project and assisted with the consultation and engagement portion. So the engagement process that they undertook and led was they engaged with local First Nation and Métis stakeholders throughout the process. They had initial meetings in which they discussed the potential of having an art piece, recognizing our local Indigenous and Métis heritage, and to get their thoughts on concepts and to share the region's history so that they could really learn what might be appropriate for our area. The designers came back, they presented the concepts to the working group and obtained additional feedback. From there, they further refined the concepts of the screen. Those were fine-tuned, and right now they're waiting for additional feedback regarding the final version that they just presented, as well as confirmation of all spelling and wording that's incorporated into their design. For anybody who hasn't had an opportunity to see the plaza or any of the designs, the context, to give you a little bit of perspective, Queen Street is located up here with Bay Street down in this area. And off of the skating area and splash feature is the pathway, and the screen would be located in this red section of the plaza. Some of the narrative elements that they took into consideration through their consultation was the overall concept of wadding in the rapids. So Sault Ste. Marie as a gathering place. So some examples of the imagery that were used. As well, they looked at, the major stopping places along the routes, Turtle Island, different locations. So those are all outlined there. And the elements of the Anishinaabe migration and the 7 stops, centering around the wadding and the influences from east to west. Again, some imagery which outlines some of the narrative elements that they took from their consultation, and noting the important elements and stories of each stop in the migration story. They also looked at incorporating Métis design elements to honor and acknowledge the history and culture in the area. Oops. So some of the design motifs, such as the beadwork, or taking inspirations from patterning from the Métis sash and the river lot system. And sorry, so this is the conceptual drawing of the design and the panels. The total area is 1.8 meters high by 10 meters long. Again, this isn't the final version. This is the state that it's at currently. So they're still pending the final consultation and dialogue with the working group. And there's a few more conceptual ones that kind of show it in a different form. And these panels are going to be cut out of metal. So these are just samples of some of the cutouts. So these are metal screens and everything's laser cut. So I'm just going to bring it back to there. And if there's any questions, I'll do my best to answer them.
Thanks, Virginia. Floor is open. Any comments, questions? I have a question. So who was on? Oh, sorry, Donna first. After you.
No, Sean, you go first.
Oh, I was just curious about the composition of the groups that were consulted. How the individuals were selected for that part of the process.
Yeah, as far as how they were selected, I'm not sure. I did ask for clarification because I did receive a question prior to the meeting regarding some of the who was involved with the consultation. So I believe Mitch Case, Steve Josh, Chief Ricard, Kathy Surrett. They also reached out to Anishinaabe student unions to get a youth perspective as well. So those are a number of the individuals that were involved and engaged in the process as well. Others were invited to participate as well, but due to weren't able to because of possible time constraints, but that's who they've been engaging with throughout this process.
Oh, that's great to know. Thank you. Donna, and then everybody feel free to put up your hands. I'll put you on a speakers list. Then Donna, then Larry.
I think this is a beautiful project. I'm struggling a little bit with two things. One is that, you know, the plaza project has an amount of funding and a budget and so on, and so the fact that it's not included in that is just something that makes me pause slightly. But more importantly than that, we have such limited funds right now, and I want to say very clearly that I love this idea, and I'm so happy to see that our local Métis community and others were involved in putting this together and inspiring this. My concern is that we don't have a public art strategy yet, and we've got a little bit of money in our pot right now for investing in public art. We will have a little bit more at the minimum next year. And my concern is that we don't have a strategy or a goal for what we want to accomplish when we have such, you know, we are coming from a place that's very at the basics, right? We do not have any significant public art at this time. We have some beautiful things out there, but so I'm feeling a little bit conflicted about feeling so great about what I see in this design and excited because I'm very supportive of the plaza. And seeing this type of art included there. I'm struggling though with it not being part of a like that we as a city, as a committee, whatever, we don't have a strategy around public art, and we haven't prioritized anything, we haven't identified what we want to focus on, and we have such limited funding that's my struggle. I'm sort of sitting in that place. I'll just leave it there.
Thank you, Donna. Then Larry, and anybody else, please put up your hands to be on the list.
I think the plaza is, I know it's controversial in the community, but I think it's a really good project because it's opening the water up again, the river, and I won't go into that. I think this is a very interesting project with the panels and telling Indigenous stories. My question is this a written stone thing, or will it be refreshed every 3 years or a couple of years, or is this a forever thing? I think there are lots of stories to be told. I've thought for a number of years now that we should be telling more about why this was a gathering place, why this was a place that people, that Europeans settled, because it was a gathering place for the Indigenous from all over, hundreds of miles away. Quite interesting to see the migration. I'd love to see a little bit more about that, because the last 8 years of my working career, I spent with First Nations all over Western Canada, primarily. The Saulteaux First Nation, for example, all came from here. And they're a major First Nation in Western Canada, and the stories of the migration and why and how and so on. It's so interesting, and the story about our river system is a highway. So these are underlying thoughts to my question: are these panels, is there any thought about how these will be refreshed, or if they'll be refreshed, or is it going to be the same story for ever?
I think I can try to answer that. I think there's two parts to your question, Larry, and it's a great question. I think that this piece with the materials is constructed out of It's constructed to have some longevity. So, that piece would be there for some time. And I do agree that there are lots of stories to tell. So I think this then goes back to Donna's point that, having that type of strategy and having a public art master plan would kind of guide us in what that next piece is. And maybe there is other stories or other things that we need to pull out and look at as part of that future plan for, those future public art installations. I think, does that tie back to kind of what you were getting at, Donna?
Sorry. Yes, it does, in a way. Because part of the strategy, like a strategy is around, I'm sorry, I meant to. So a strategy is around like what and how and what do we want things to look like, and obviously that strategy has to have a maintenance component to it, which is part of our public art policy. Like, how are those things maintained, which is in a certain way what you're talking about, Larry and Virginia. I don't know if the maintenance part of that fits in to this conversation we're having today. Like, what happens in, how is it replaced and how is it renewed or refreshed or whatever. My concern is more about, like, we have a limited amount of funds, and I'm going to work as best I can to grow that. But how do we want to spend that money, and what do we want to see happen because we spend that money? Like, what do we want that to look like in a year or 2 years and 5 years and 10 and all that?
Thanks, Donna. Heather.
I think I need more background on how this design decision was made. Like, is this part of the plaza? Is this something that is been asked to do as part of the plaza? I feel like I'm missing that history piece. Is that so? Like, who is commissioning this and who's asking on behalf of this design company? I guess that's my question. Like, I realize who they consulted with, but whose idea is this?
So bearing that in mind, I'll go to Andrea as well, because I'm not sure if you had a response or if it was an addition, but either way, you can start speaking and we'll go to Virginia for response to both questions.
Right. Yeah. I mean, this was more of a question because I know we had put into the public art policy that new builds would have a percentage allocated. So I'm wondering how much of the plaza as a build is contributing to this. And just one other point, I mean, 40,000 seems relatively inexpensive for something of this sort of scale. And it's a piece that seems to have nice longevity. Looking at some of that designer's work, there's more interesting works that they do. I mean, in terms of sort of more architectural works, but it still looks like it could have some really nice features with the light. But I guess, I'm just wondering what portion of this project is funded by the plaza rather than the art committee or the public art committee.
And so, Virginia, and then I have a question, and we'll go to Larry again.
So 2 questions. So to Andrew's question, I'd have to double check. I do not know exactly what the full cost is on that. So I'd have to come back to the committee. So that's something that we can do. I can bring additional information back based off of the questions I'm unable to answer tonight. So that's one. And I can also get some additional background. So what I do know is, originally as we were designing the plaza, the concept of a screen was there so that we could have some separation. And then from there, I think that's when the firm and the city decided to reach out through that working group to see, what the thoughts were from those community members with regards to incorporating Indigenous elements, how that should look, and how they envisioned it. So I think that there was that consultation process there, but I would definitely have to confirm that and bring that information back to you, Heather.
And then Andrea with the follow-up.
So is this the firm that's doing the entire plaza?
Brooke McElroy is designing the plaza, and then they have their Indigenous arm or group that works on these types of projects within that firm.
Okay.
Then I just have a quick question, and then we'll go to Larry. Sir. More about the art installation itself. If you go to the last slide, I'm curious, especially to the question of longevity. Is it being designed with materials in mind of how they age? Like looking at this comparison, to me, it looks as if they've also considered how this material ages and how that will be part of the how that will impact the work over time. Is that the case, or am I just making things up in my mind?
That's what I got from the slide, is that, initially it'll look new and this is what it would look like over time, as it, obviously is exposed to the elements.
Great, thanks. Larry.
Has the local Indigenous community, the two First Nations that abut Sault Ste. Marie, been consulted on this? This is all a good news story, but the flavor of the day seems to be the history and effects of colonialism. So has anybody passed this by the local Indigenous community?
I believe there was some outreach to Batchewana First Nation, and I know based off of what I received, when I asked for clarification, that Chief Ricard from Garden River First Nation did sit in on some of the meetings, was able to, as well as Kathy Surratt for Urban, and then Anishinaabe students at the schools, as well as members from our local Métis Nation were involved.
So you're satisfied that there's been enough consultation that once it's all there, it will not become a controversy, and it will not be said that this is non-Indigenous presentation of Indigenous culture of the time and history and so on and so forth.
Again, this is the information that I received as far as the consultation. I wasn't involved with this project as far as the consultation or in this side. So from what I understand, they are confident that they have done, quite a bit of consultation, and they feel comfortable with it.
Okay.
Again, I can ask for additional clarification.
Because if there's one thing we should learn, that is that we should consult in a meaningful way.
Thanks, Larry. A couple things that came to my mind that I will share if there's not other further discussion. Okay, yeah. So one of the things that strikes me, and I'm just speaking as a committee member, not directly as the chair, but when you mentioned who was involved in the consultation, I was really impressed, and grateful that consultation took place. To your question, Larry, too, I think that it is very difficult to predict what reactions will be, especially when we weren't flies on the wall in the consultation processes. We don't necessarily know who said what during those processes, but from looking at the design elements and the way things have been pulled together around these narrative elements and around these visual elements, and with the thoughtfulness of doing those consultations as well, because that doesn't happen often. And to your point, I think it is absolutely imperative that especially when telling Anishinaabe and Métis stories, that Anishinaabe and Métis storytellers are the ones who are directing that narrative. And kudos as well to the firm for having those Indigenous professionals who are leading that. So it is incredibly exciting to see the story of the migration being integrated into public art in Sault Ste. Marie. But I also share those concerns that have been expressed around the way that we are resourcing public art more generally, not just this piece, but it's part of this larger conversation of public art. And I agree that it would be worthwhile for us to, and Virginia, I always hate to impose on your time, but if you can go back to seek clarification about what proportion of the funding is being for this project is coming directly from funds allocated to the plaza versus what are we being asked to pitch in as the committee responsible for dispersing public art funding to backfill the funds for public art installation. Because one of the other concerns, and I think others have sort of hinted at this as well, is that the way that we have is essentially that we don't really have a strategy yet. Not just that we don't have the plan, but we have no strategy whatsoever in terms of how we disperse public art funding so far. I know we're going to get to that spot where we have that plan and that will provide clarity. But so far, we've been asked to, and we've made these commitments, and I think that they're wise investments, and I think this is an amazing candidate as well. But what worries me is that we're given proposals isolated from other context, where we're not that we would necessarily adjudicate everything against each other. It's not always a competition, but that we have no notion of what other requests may come down the pipe, that if we allocate the funding for this, what are we missing out on? We don't have, it just seems like all of the requests that have come so far have come directly from city projects. And of course, the integration of public art in those is incredibly important. And this looks like a brilliant work that would be a huge contribution to our city and with great longevity. But it is a little concerning to me because I feel like I'm making decisions in a bit of a vacuum. That said, I don't mean that for that sentiment to reflect poorly on this particular proposal, because I'm quite impressed, barring any additional if any of this is otherwise contradicted by the parties that were consulted. But it sounds like this consultation process was quite thoughtful, and I think I really think that deserves praise, and especially in reshaping the presentation that we make of ourselves into the world of what this community is and has been historically and continues to be. Anyway, I'll leave it there. Floor is open still. Larry?
Would it be prudent to give some credit or acknowledgement to the Indigenous professionals and local members of the First Nations communities in the design of this project? In other words, giving public acknowledgement. In the plaza, just down in a corner somewhere.
Oh, I see. Like if there was either that they had in effect signed the work, or there was some explanation of the process.
In other words, this is not the product of non-Indigenous idea of Indigenous culture,
Right. Yeah, it's not through the gaze of a Western lens kind of thing. Yeah. Andrea? Sorry, that came out basket ice cream. Yeah.
I mean, at the very least, most cities are putting that sort of information about the consultation processes of their public artwork on the archive website. So even if it's not physically on the work or on a plaque, it is available in connection with more of the backstory of the work usually.
Thanks, Andrea. All right, so far we have a request just to go back, essentially that we wouldn't make a decision tonight, but that, you know, Virginia would go back to get clarification on some of the budget allotment. And is there anything else? Oh, and just, I know we've answered many of the questions around consultation as well, but any other thoughts or comments?
If there are additional questions that may come up between now and our September meeting, please feel free to send them to me and I can see if I'll pull together any additional information you're looking for the September meeting.
Thanks, Virginia. Any final comments or remarks? Nope. Okay. We will move on to the next item on the agenda, which is correspondence. Any correspondence, Virginia?
No, I think we're good.
Great. And then our next meeting is scheduled for September 21st at 4:30 p.m. Now we're at item 9, adjournment. Could I have a mover to adjourn? Moved by Andrea, seconded by Jane. All those in favor, please remain silent. Anybody abstaining or opposed, please indicate so in the chat or open your mic to express your intent. Motion carries. Great to see everybody. Really interesting, robust discussion, and just great to hear the updates, all of the incredible work, and again, kudos to you, Virginia, and everyone on the team. Oh, and also congratulations to Alicia, who is on maternity leave right now. This is a new development since many of us saw her at the last meeting, or if you had the pleasure to see her at the Summer Moon Festival. So congratulations, Alicia. Enjoy your next little while.
Thank you, everybody.